Lamar,
Mackenzie.
I just feel like you're so nervous about how much I'm about to nerd out today. You're like, I can just feel it coming,
As long as we
right?
talk about the movie more than we do, Greek myths.
We're, yeah.
I have a
Well,
hard time meeting you there. I just nod and go, oh, okay. Thank you for being smarter than me.
No, y'all, I have a degree in English literature. Once in a while, I just want to put it to work, and never get to use it. That's all I'm saying. But no, I'll try to keep it on lock. I do want to talk about the book translations a little bit today. I promise
Okay.
I will keep it to the invocation only. But I am curious if you can, off the top of your head, name the trials of Odysseus.
Nope. Okay. I know we're recording at
You can
2:40
try.
in the afternoon, but it's
Yeah.
too early for this shit. We had, a good night with friends last night. I am still
Yes.
slightly hungover, and I think it's ironic that we're doing the Odyssey because I feel a lot like Matt Damon on that fucking island where I don't remember So today's episode is basically going to be me talking Calypso
Yeah.
and being like, I can't remember what I saw in that movie theater last week. What did I see? The Odyssey. Tell me about it.
You're telling me I got to carry this team today.
Yeah.
On one of my
Trivia's going to be rough, but you inform us. What were the trials of Odysseus?
Well, we can do it together because I think you'll get them.
Okay.
We're gonna just warm you up a little bit.
Okay.
And I think the thing is there are different trials in the book, and then there are trials in the movie. What I was asking about was the movie. I'm not trying to trick you.
Oh, okay.
But the ones in the movie there's a couple that end up being combined and things like that. But I think people forget, walking out of this movie, how many things he has gone through to get home. That's why I think it's so interesting. So the first trial is Polyphemus, the Cyclops. And this is actually the son of Poseidon. So this is that incredible puppet that we see, and we'll talk about more later. But that's the first major trial. And then if you just think back on all the other things he has to also go through during this entire trek, he then encounters the Lestrygonians, who are, do you know who that is? Do you remember which one that is?
Those are the 7-foot-tall knights.
Yes, look at you. You're crushing it. You're waking up. We got this.
I'm remembering what happened. Yeah.
They're cannibals, actually. Fun fact. We don't go into this movie, but they are cannibals. They're giants. They were shot in really interesting ways. These are 7-foot dudes up against 5-foot stunt performers. It's wild. Matt's stunt double was a woman. It's very cool. And then he goes from there to another island. He's just island hopping. This is like a vacation gone awry.
That threw me a little bit in the movie. I know that we're, in the preamble here, but it threw me in the movie because it felt like they just went from that fight with the 7-foot-tall knights and went to a different part of the same island and then run into the Circe lady. I didn't realize they went to a different island. I was like, oh, she just lives on this same island and there happens to be two terrifying things here.
Nope, different. So you got the next one, Circe. Excellent. And then she tells them to go
animal lover. That's Circe.
Oh, Circe. Circe's a fun one.
You guys would get along.
We could talk about Circe all day long. She's a wild one, and I love her. But she tells them to go where?
Go to hell.
Literally.
She does. She says
literally. I love that you accidentally got it right.
Yeah, I stumbled into that correct answer.
She goes to the underworld. After that, they go to the Sirens, where Odysseus is like, but I just have to hear the siren song.
That was when he does that. Should we just throw down a spoiler warning? I feel like we're getting into a lot of what actually happens in the film.
No, because everyone said 3,000 fucking years to read the book. I don't have any patience for this. You're fine.
Well, in the film, I love when they're on the boat and he's like, okay, we're going to go past the sirens. Everybody put wax in your ears. Nobody lives that hears the song. And he's like, but me, tie me up to the post. I want to hear it. And his men are like, what are you doing? This is insane. No one's ever lived. He's like, yeah, but I think it'll be cool. And he kind of just laughs. And it's one of the most lighthearted moments in the film. And all I could think of was, hi, my name's Odysseus. Welcome to Jackass. Because it just felt so silly that he was doing this thing. And I could probably die, but it's going to be hilarious. Let's do it.
It's super on brand. It's very Odysseus, I love it. Then we go to Scylla, who is the monster coming out of the cave. Also a very interesting mythological story. Then we have Charybdis, which is the whirlpool. And those are right next to each other, as we know. And then we have Thriancia, which is the island where the cattle are and where they eat Helios's cattle, the sun god's cattle. And then we go from there to your favorite Calypso, where
Mhm.
they forget everything and have the lotus flowers and all that good stuff. And that is actually combined from the book into some other things. And then finally he goes home and he has to battle the suitors and yield the bow and do all of that. So that's the framework for this story today, is what I'm
It's kind of
saying.
an Odyssey that he's in.
A
Like
little
it's
bit of an Odyssey. A
yeah.
little bit of an Odyssey. What is that meme that it was like? It was like Matt Damon. It's a picture of him like landing home, and he's like, "Well, you can't ask them because they're all dead, but we all decided we should name the story after me."
Well, they were like, what did I saw a tweet that was like, what did they call it before Odyssey? Like, what did they call it? And they were like, oh, this is our friend Journeyicus, and that's what she went on before we went on an Odyssey. Like, I don't know the exact tweet, but it made me giggle.
Oh, I love it. Well, thanks for like kind of trying to play trivia with me.
If I had known that it was just going to be list things that happened in the movie, I mean, I got there, I think, but yeah, I guess I
you got
missed
some
a
of them.
couple. Yeah.
You did all right. You did all right. All right, let's nerd out. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are wrapping up Summer Blockbuster month with the last one, the most epic one, The Odyssey.
Yeah.
About which I am very fucking excited.
2 hours and 50-something minutes.
Yeah. You know, it didn't feel like that to me, but we'll get there.
A lot like Oppenheimer, his last one. I felt like that had momentum where it didn't feel like you were watching a 3-hour film because it just kept chugging along. This is a lot like that, I think.
Yeah, there's just, again, we talked about the trials. Like, there's just so much happening that they're going through, and it's moving throughout that I don't think there's, there's a pacing issue here, or there's slow points, really. I think it's done really well.
Yeah, they linger on, like, and I think it's a good thing. I'm saying this as a positive, but I think it could get silly if you tried to cram all of these different trials into it. Would just feel like, oh, we're jumping from set piece to set piece and there's all these crazy monsters. There are a couple moments where it did feel like that, but I think they linger on each trial enough that it makes the movie feel like cohesive. And it's like they could have just had the Cyclops fight be like one scene. If we run into a Cyclops, we fight him and like this happens. But instead it goes on for like 20 minutes. They're stuck in this cave. They make it, they stretch the things out, and I think that works.
No, I agree. And I think like you're supposed to feel the lengthening of this time of this journey home. I mean, it does take him 10 years as we established. So I think you're supposed to feel every minute of that. But again, I think they do it in a way where you still have that momentum. Like you said, you're moving through things. So anyway, we're getting into it because there's a lot to discuss. But what are you drinking today? Because I cannot.
Oh, so I am drinking a recipe. Yeah. Do you want to get into your FODMAP diet?
Oh my God. You poor people don't need to listen to me talk about this, but suffice it to say I'm on the worst diet of all time at the direction of a doctor. It's called the FODMAP diet, and you basically can barely eat or drink anything. So I made a cocktail that I will be trying in 6 business weeks, perhaps.
Well, for what it's worth, it is very tasty. So you did this one. We're calling it the Lotus Flower. And it's 1 ounce of Empress Gin, 1 ounce of Lillet Blanc, half an ounce of elderflower liqueur, half an ounce of fresh lime juice. Shake that up, strain it into, what are we doing, a coupe for this? I did a coupe. And then top it off with Prosecco. And if you want to do the garnish, long floating cucumber ribbon and a sprig of fresh mint. I did not because I'm not a big cucumber guy. And I don't even think we had cucumbers in the fridge. But it is good.
Okay, cheers. I might cheers you with my non-dairy coffee. It is fine.
It's good. It's pretty.
I will have to make it and take a picture of it for you guys, and then I don't know, give it to a neighbor. But it's a pretty one, I think. So that's fun. All right, kids, we are talking about The Odyssey. Obviously came out this year. This is running at an 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 94% from critics, 97% from audiences. And I will just say what Himesh Patel said on an interview that I read, where he was like, if you see no other films in theaters in general, if this is not your energy, not your vibe, this is the one to go see because it is absolute cinema. So I think to me, those scores make so much sense because I just think it's such an experience, even if you're not into Greek mythology, even if you're not a huge Christopher Nolan fan, which by the way, weird, still go see it. I think it's such an experience personally.
Yeah, we did a whole month of Nolan movies, and I think we've done even more of his films outside of that theme month. But, we talked about it in a couple of the others where he is on the record as just saying he appreciates cinema in the theater setting. Like he makes his
Mm-hmm.
movies for theatrical viewing, and I think it's very clear when you look at his use of IMAX and all the thought and logic he puts into what's on screen, but also the sound is always incredible in his movies. This one's incredibly loud to the point that I missed some of the dialogue, but I think that's very intentional. You're supposed to be in the chaos with these characters.
I agree, and I will say, I think you hit the nail on the head of something that I wanted to reiterate here. I nerded out really hard on this, obviously, for a number of reasons, but one of his interviews, I think he said it so well and in a way that I think is such a cool way to explain the role of a director. He said, part of the job as of a director is maybe the primary job is to be the audience on set. So he
Hmm.
takes, like you said, that role of sitting in the theater and experiencing this film so seriously. And that's the way he tries to enact his vision. And that this film in particular was so hard. And it's like he says multiple times, like, I want to enhance the movie watching experience as much as possible because he's just a fan of movies. He fucking loves movies. And I think that comes through, like everything that he builds and directs is that way.
Absolutely. I also appreciate that he jumps genres a lot. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
have predicted after Oppenheimer that he'd be like, I guess I'm gonna go do this like myth, this
Yeah.
mythology thing. And he's done stuff like Memento, but he's also done 3 Batman
Mhm.
movies. I just love that he puts all that same effort, regardless of whatever the subject matter is he's working on. It's not like, Spielberg or Scorsese, where like, yeah, they're passion projects they go all in on, but then they're gonna do some
Do
clunkers and
some
just be like,
weirdos,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
just gonna get a paycheck for this one. It always
No,
feels
like
like
he
Nolan's
doesn't
all in.
yeah, he doesn't half-ass it. He's
Yeah.
fully committed every single time. And I think he said a couple of times too, like he'd been wanting to do a myth for a while, but I think the thing is that he felt like this was such an excellent choice because it really is a combination of, in his opinion, like 7 different types of stories. And I agree. Like you have this typical adventure, you have a war story, you have a romance story, you have an odyssey and a journey and all these things. And so it combines so many relationships, but also various actions that turn this into a really interesting, compelling story. And I think what I love about him as a director, just generally speaking, is that he can be putting on these epic productions, and this may be definitely the most epic of them all, and he still finds the human moments and the emotion and the connection, not only in the writing but in the performances of his actors, and he builds that environment in a way that they can do that they can focus on the people, the characters, and not
Yeah.
just an action movie.
Yeah, fantasy is not, one of my favorite genres. If you want to consider this a fantasy, I would say, it's mythological, it's fantasy. But I feel like that and superhero films, you run that risk, to your point, of having it be all about like the action and not
Yeah.
having any investment in the characters. And I think he does a great job of making you care. The one critique I will give is I do kind of wish that his individual soldiers, as they're getting like picked off, like they're just red shirts on Star Trek throughout this whole film, but like as they're getting killed, I feel like we really only know like his right hand man. I don't remember the character's name. You probably remember who I'm talking about, the guy with the beard.
Hermes.
Yeah, so I feel like we know him very well, and a couple of his other guys get individual lines of dialogue, but I kind of wish they had made you care about more of his men throughout the film as we're seeing them get slaughtered, basically.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking, let me correct myself. That
No worries.
is Euryclus, is who you're talking about.
Yes,
I was
yeah.
talking about his servant at home. But yeah, no, you do. Like, he's the only one that you kind of primarily connect with. That is also, I will say, like, relatively true of the story. I mean, they are kind of an amalgamation, I feel like, of his soldiers. And I think part of that is because, you know, you lose them throughout the story.
Yeah,
So
but
you're
I
not
think
super
of like the
invested.
HBO series Band of Brothers, and in that it is
Yeah.
an ensemble cast of like it's hundreds of
Yes.
cast members, and they make you care about every loss on that show.
Right.
I know it's a 3-hour film, not a miniseries, but I
Right.
kind of wish they had given more personality to his people, like as they're getting picked off.
Yeah.
I would have. I mean, you're supposed to feel for Odysseus, but I would also like to have cared more about his individual men, I think.
Yeah, I just think that's not in the source material, but I hear you. Like as a
Mm.
film, I think watching people on screen, you want to be invested in what's happening on the screen. But in the source material, the focus is Odysseus. It is his journey and how
Yeah.
his own ego and his own hubris, despite being brilliant and his cunning in the ways that it's described, and being brave and being strong and being just a good soldier and all these things, despite all of that, he is a deeply flawed person whose own ego and hubris causes the deaths of a lot of people in this story. And I think you're supposed to feel the weight of that both on him and around him. You know, like there is a certain amount of fate and inevitability that we spend some time with here, but there is absolutely his role in it. And I think that's what
Yeah.
you kind of contend with throughout, just, you
Yeah.
know, fascinating layers to the story.
To that point, because we're talking a lot about like is there any part of you that, to me, I was a little upset watching this because I think it's not super true to the source material, because like as we all know, this is the sequel to the 2005 film Troy, with Brad Pitt and Eric Bana. And I just feel like this one goes off the rails of like, that's the original material. That was a perfect 10 out of 10 film.
Wow.
And Diana
Wow.
Kruger isn't in this. I don't get to see her boobies. And like Brad Pitt's not. I know that they killed him off. They probably could have resurrected. They resurrect other people in this. I just feel like it kind of shits on the source material, in my opinion.
You know what? You're just trying to trigger me, and I'm not going to let it happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not going to engage.
On, get triggered. Get triggered.
I refuse to explain to you that that's the Iliad and this is the Odyssey, and that was a different film and source material. Like, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it. No, it's yeah, this is far better than Troy, obviously. But I did rewatch that ahead of this just for funsies, and the contrast is real. Like, I will say,
Should have just brought Brian Cox back. I don't even remember what his character ended up in the Iliad, but I would love to see him in this. Just telling
he
people
was
to fuck off.
Menelaus. Menelaus. So John Bernthal's character. Yeah.
Oh, that tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that in my notes of just John Bernthal doing John Bernthal things. It kind of took me out of it. I love John Bernthal. For the
I was
record.
gonna say, I think he's well placed. I don't know. I think it works. For Menelaus as a character,
out of it a little
like,
bit because it's fucking. I just can. His voice is so it's unique, and
he does have a very
him just like, yeah, your brother, he's a cool guy, and like blah blah blah, like this and that, like yeah, he was great. We went to war. It was awesome. Like it's just John Bernthal. But I would watch that guy running a cooking show. If they ever make like a sequel to March of the Penguins, he could narrate it. Like I'll listen to that dude's voice any day of the week. But
100%. Like he can talk, he could say anything to me, and I would be fine with it for sure. I agree. Okay, I want to blow through some of the production people because I know we don't always do this, but again, I think this is just such a feat of epic filmmaking that I want to shout them out a little bit more than typical. I watched a making of documentary, so I went hard in the paint on these people, and they are fucking fascinating. So the first AD here is Nilo Otero, and my favorite quote from him in this documentary is, "There's a reason we don't go row great big open boats around the ocean anymore." So he's talking about how hard it was to film those sequences on these real boats. There was literally rowing camp they had to run for both stunt persons and actors to learn how to row that boat for real to shoot those scenes. And he and some other stunt performers and coordinators were running that camp. There's footage of it. It's fucking insane. So shouting him as well as others out.
Talk about with Nolan films how much he prefers practical, which we both appreciate, and like all the effects in this, I believe, are practical, and it just makes total sense. You know what threw me when I saw that Matt Damon had to grow a real beard? I was like, well, talk about practical. He had to grow a real beard in it,
which he said was hard.
He said it was hard because he's never done it before, like grown it out that far. And then I went through his film history, and I was like, yeah, I've never seen Matt Damon with a
clean-shaven dude,
so
man.
Weird. Yeah,
maybe a little scruff, you know, but not much else. Yeah, I think you see him with the most facial hair in The Martian. You know, that's probably it.
Right.
But yeah.
But no, practical on, like, you talked about the Cyclops being like an animatronic kind of puppet. The Circe, like the animal face stuff is all practical, and that part threw me. Even the fucking dolphins that showed up next to the boat were just a random happenstance. They didn't even plan that shit. So,
and Nilo even says that. He goes, "You know where that doesn't happen? In the fucking tank." You know, he's like, well, this is why we shoot on location. And that's the other thing I would just say as a little anecdote is that you can tell that the ethos of his cast and crew is his. Like, he absolutely owns the vision of this film. They are all bought into the goal is to enhance that movie experience. I heard in this documentary multiple people say this exact thing that he had said in a different way. So you can tell he's just truly such a captain of this ship, pun not intended, and they are following him and they are trying to execute the same thing. And one of the things that I heard on that documentary was like, you have so many people here who are the best at what they do. period, full stop, in their industry. And they are reaching beyond their skill set to execute what he wants them to do, but they want to do it, right? They are pushing themselves to the extreme to make these things happen. And this is the fucking result. So it's really incredible to me. And of course, his longtime producing partner, have to shout out Emma Thomas's wife. And I just love, like, she comes on screen and I'm like, you know, she runs this shit. You know, like she is just a bad bitch. I love her. She again, same thing, loves the vision. And then they have all these other key, just incredibly influential production designer, Ruth De Jong. She and her crew build all the sets that are added on either to real life locales or had to be built independent of them. And the castle that, or Ithaca, where they have that big castle, they had to build onto that. You cannot tell it all. And they did a massive amount of construction. That's her team getting stuff to the top of a mountain. That's a 45-minute hike every day. So incredible work, obviously. And then you spoke to the effects. Visual effects supervisor is Andrew Jackson. He's the guy who, like, everybody on the team says, this is what
$20 bill, I think.
Yeah, same guy.
Okay.
He's got the visual effects down, you know, he's got it covered. But he is hearing what Chris and what everybody wants. And he's the guy who goes, okay, how do we actually execute it? How do we actually do it? You know, and he's trying to make it, again, practical.
Did you happen to catch any of the other movies that he's done? I would be curious what other visual effects he's done that we might have seen.
He's done they've all worked with Christopher Nolan before. Okay. So at least one of those credits. I don't think anybody was really new to him other than some of the cast. There's a couple people who hadn't worked with him before. And then stunt coordinator is George Cottle. He's the one who is obviously coordinating all the stunts, but spending so much time on, especially the fight scenes, getting the actors. They did have to do their own stunts. That was Chris's expectation. And so those fight scenes are executed by Matt Damon, who, you know, will say himself that he doesn't do his own stunts typically, at least not heavy duty ones. And they had to rehearse constantly, and they had to actually fight it out. And every single person was in the best physical form they could possibly be so that they could execute these stunts.
So you said Matt Damon did all his fight scenes. Did Robert Pattinson do all his not fight scenes where he's just yelling, Spears,
just standing around yelling?
Did he do all his stunts in those scenes?
Excellent at that. Yes, he's excellent at that. And then cinematography. Hoyte van Hoytema, one of the best cinematographers of all time, has worked with, obviously, Christopher Nolan many times. He is the one who executed this new camera. They invented this camera for this film. IMAX, this is one of the first feature-length films. It's technically only the second, but full feature-length film to do everything in IMAX and full IMAX cameras. And it's so hard on these quiet, intimate scenes to do that historically, and it's why it hasn't happened in the past other than on action scenes, because the cameras are so loud. They built what they called a blimp to put around this camera, which then made each of these cameras 300 pounds. And he has to manipulate those in a way that you can get these very intimate scenes. So they built a construction of mirrors that allowed the actors in these one-to-one scenes still be able to see each other around the camera. So this is just like a feat of filmmaking on every single level. And the cinematography alone, they had to shoot that huge camera in the horse. They were put in the horse, closed up in the horse, and they have this huge 300-pound blimp camera. John Bernthal's
was already like claustrophobic enough. I can't imagine like
and the water was apparently freezing too. So like John Bernthal was at the bottom, and they said there were multiple points where he was shivering, and they had like between takes he would shiver, and then he would be like, just go. So like this was incredibly hard to shoot, and it was incredibly hard to be shot in. And so we just have to
how much bigger
give credit
can we
where
make
it's due.
Movie screens? Like I feel like, you know, Nolan's all about the IMAX, and it's like we're gonna add more. I feel like eventually there's gonna be like an IMAX deluxe. It's like we're gonna add 20 more feet to the screen, and you're gonna be able to see a bird fucking 50 feet away from the action. You know, you could turn your head 180 degrees and be like, oh look, back there's like a little guy walking around. I wonder what he's up to. Like, just how much bigger can we get screens?
I don't think it's going to get bigger. I think it's going to go into those the 4DX experiences, the ones where like the seats are shaking and
Smell-o-vision.
it's like actually really smell-o-vision. Exactly. I think it's, you know, the 70 millimeter IMAX is where it's at. That's where I'm going to be road tripping to next week, as you know.
Nice.
And but the 70 millimeter alone, we'll share on our stories. Like you can see the differences in the views. It's very fascinating cut to cut what you see. but yeah, it's just an incredible feat to shoot this. And a shout out, of course, also to IMAX that again invented this camera at the behest of Nolan, who's like, I want to shoot the entire thing in this. And the new one, the new camera is called the Keeley, in honor of David Keeley, who oversaw all of this. He used to be the chief quality officer at IMAX, and he passed a few weeks after the project was done. So it's named in honor of him. So wanted to shout him out. And then the last big one I want to mention, of course, there are so many. I'm not trying to miss anybody, but this is too epic of a production to go into. The music, as you said, is incredible. Ludwig Göransson, we've talked about him before. He did Tenet, Oppenheimer, but also Sinners. And he had to actually reconstruct ancient instruments for this film. He had to get Bronze Age gongs and incorporate those. They built a replica of the ancient lyre and had to learn how to play it. They also had to play the aulos, which is like you think about it as like almost like a two-prong type of flute, perhaps. But no reeds are in existence today of how that was played. So they had to construct that and do like anthropological research to find out how were they played, how were they made. And that is what you hear on this score. It's really fucking incredible.
Up on, like I didn't know who the composer was while I was watching it, but I did pick up. This one has such just a very one of a kind score compared to, I mean, I feel like all of Nolan's movies have unique scores. They're all very different from one another.
Yeah.
But this one, just the instrumentation, there's a lot of like tribal drums and, to your point, like gongs and whatnot, but it's just chaotic at times. And it's just instrumentation I hadn't really heard in a film for a while.
Yeah, and the lyre, the string on the lyre, which for reference, if you haven't seen one, it looks kind of like a harp, like a small handheld harp. The string is what the bow sound is when he snaps his bow. They made that the lyre string. And I just think that's such a beautiful homage in so many ways. And it's such an impactful moment in the movie, I think, each time you hear it. And it's such a unique sound. So yeah, I just think it's so impressive how that, I mean, if you were big into score and music, like you could have a whole documentary about how the score was made. It's fucking nuts. Okay. We're going to blow through the cast and crew. I think most people know that these folks, but I just want to call out who has worked with Nolan before and who hasn't. So Matt Damon obviously plays Odysseus. He has done Interstellar and Oppenheimer with Nolan before. But Tom Holland, this is the first. He plays Telemachus. He plays Odysseus' son. It's his first film with them. He has, however, worked with Robert Pattinson twice. One of them was like The Devil All the Time. I haven't seen it. It's on Netflix.
It was a bummer seeing Spider-Man without his powers, and you remember that Peter Parker's kind of a wimp, and just seeing him get his ass kicked in this.
Why is everybody hating on Telemachus? We were talking about this last night, and some people were like, I really wanted him to like his spider web to come out. I'm so glad that he got this role so that people can see him do something other than Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's not a miscast of like the actor himself. I think it's just poorly timed with everyone seeing him as Spider-Man, and like if this had come out 10 years ago, like everyone would be fine with it, because he does make a really good Telemachus. So
he does a great job of Telemachus. Again, if you read the source material, it makes a lot of sense. So I think he does a good job. We have Anne Hathaway playing Penelope. Bad bitch in her own right, doesn't get enough credit in my view. We'll talk about it. The Dark Knight Rises, obviously she's done with Nolan as well as Interstellar. And then Robert Pattinson plays her key suitor and antagonist here, Antinous, and he has been in Tenet before. Best dressed I think you've ever seen Robert Pattinson in Tenet, perhaps. And then we have
such a like great bastard in this. Like he is so fucking hateable.
And I don't think he's like a hateable guy, you know what I mean? So like that was kind of fun to see him do.
But if you were watching like all the Twilight movies, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, or just hearing about it and you were a dude and you were like, I fucking hate that guy, you should go watch this, because you get to hate on Edward as much as you want to. He's a fucking douche in this.
I get it. I was Team Jacob, to be fair, back in the day. So
I don't know when we're ever going to talk about Taylor Lautner. I don't think it's on the agenda to ever do Twilight movies, and I don't know many other of his films, unfortunately.
Unless we're doing like a pancake month, the Master Pancake type of month. Right. I don't know when we're going to talk about it.
At some point. I don't know when we're ever going to mention him, so this is the only time I'll get to spit this fact out. But did you know that he married another Taylor? So literally both their names are Taylor Lautner?
Yes, I did.
I don't know.
I don't know why I know that, but I know that. Actually, you know what else I know? They have a podcast.
Taylor and Taylor? Taylor
and Taylor. I don't know what it's called, but they have one. So yeah. But remember, he also, if for a moment in time, dated Taylor Swift. I
Wow, what
just
a different world this would be if
too many Taylors. Oh, I love it. Good fact. Good fact to drop.
Thanks.
Okay, so Lupita Nyong'o plays Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra, who are twins in this version, not in the source material, but close enough. This is her first one with him and was the subject of much controversy, which is stupid because she's a badass and she's beautiful and she crushes it. She played in Us is one of the things I think we've mentioned before, but nothing with Nolan yet. This is her first one.
We also did Black Panther. She's in that.
Yep, of course. Yep, crushing it in Black Panther. So next up, we have Samantha Morton. She plays Cersei. She's awesome. Also hasn't worked with Christopher Nolan before, but she was in
What else has she
Fantastic
been
Beasts.
in?
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is
I didn't
probably
see
one
those,
that
but I
people know her
recognize her.
from.
Okay.
She's also done like a lot of period work and stage work as well. But she's great in this. Like, she's kind of the perfect Cersei, actually. I think she does a great job. There's actually a whole novel unrelated. It's an adaptation, obviously, of the myth by Madeline Miller called Circe. Highly recommend that you read it if you're interested. It's a deep dive into her and all of this. It's awesome. John Leguizamo, Eumaeus. This is his first Nolan moment, and I think it's incredible.
I wouldn't be surprised if he got like a supporting actor. And that is such a strange thing to say. Like, I know John Leguizamo is a good actor, but I didn't think he was a great actor until I saw this. Like,
I saw an interview where somebody said to him, I think this is maybe your best work. And he said, thank you. I actually think so too. Like, and I love that for him because he's like, thank you. I do think so. I busted my ass on this film. Because if you think about it, he was literally wearing vision blocking contact lenses for 12 hours a day on set. He had to be like walked around. He fully immersed himself into playing this character. And I think he does an incredible job. But I do also have to shout out his favorite credit, my favorite credit of him,
Super Mario
Romeo
Brothers.
and Juliet.
Oh, Romeo and Juliet, yes.
Yeah, I just love him. He just does such a great job in that.
Benvolio?
Tybalt.
Yeah, he was the bad guy. Okay.
He was the bad guy and he was great at it. And I just loved it. Anyways, so yeah, watch this one and then go watch Romeo and Juliet too. It's great. Then we, of course, have Zendaya, who I just have to say was filming Euphoria season 3 and Dune and the Odyssey at the same time. So, like, she deserves an Oscar for existing in this film, this very difficult film, while doing all of that. I think that's insane. She plays Athena, obviously, and she has not worked with Nolan before either. But again, she's doing Dune right now. She's done all the Dunes. She also recently was with Robert Pattinson in the drama. So she's a busy lady, and I love it.
Everywhere.
Give me more Zendaya. I'm fine with it. Charlize Theron plays Calypso. I think I was very curious about that casting. I didn't have a problem with that casting, to be clear. I have no problems with any of these cast members. I just wasn't sure about her for that role. It feels very different for her. But I really liked it for her. I thought she did a good job. Also hasn't worked with Nolan.
I don't know that it's her fault. I just feel like that character, it's intentionally sort of obscure what's happening there at first. And so you're just like, wait, you're trying to get your bearings on how he got here, why he's being kept here, is it against his will, and what is going on. So because I feel like I do need to rewatch this at some point, because I think I'll appreciate those scenes more. But when you're watching it, her character doesn't have much to contribute because they're keeping everything intentionally vague. It's not until the last 20 or 30 minutes where you're like, oh, she has feelings for him. And there's like, she's been keeping him here sort of not against his will because he sort of wants to forget all this stuff. But I feel like on a rewatch, I'll appreciate her character and the fact that Odysseus doesn't actually want to go home. That's like the big reveal at the end of like, he's ashamed of himself. So I'm excited for that on rewatch.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting interpretation. And like, that's why I do want to spend a little time talking about the translations, because I think the way this was translated makes a big difference and informs how Nolan told his story. There are many, many translations. This is based on the Emily Wilson translation, which is much more contemporary and direct in terms of its language. It's not as poetic as one would say. And in the story, Calypso is purposely keeping him there almost as kind of a sex slave a little bit, which is bad. But in this story, it's more about that she loves him and they are living there happily. And yes, he has deep shame and, fear about going home and also he has not been faithful to Penelope in the source material. Like, he loves her and she is his, you know, his partner and love of his life, but he has slept with both Circe and Calypso in the original source material. So I think they had to change that here to make us have the same empathy for him as he's going through this and understand his guilt and his shame. And she's kind of helping him process that in this story. I think it's harder to understand the 7 years there without the source material. I think
It
a little bit
seems,
is a fair.
based on what you just said, I feel like there's another story of the Odyssey to be told, and that's like Odysseus in his slut era and just like
Yeah.
swiping on Tinder
In his
and
hoe
like
phase. He was
yeah,
in his hoe phase, island and
like you want to see
hopping
an
for the
Odyssey.
ladies. Like the Odyssey on Tinder. Oh God. Yeah. So then we also have John Bernthal, who we mentioned. He plays Menelaus. We obviously haven't seen him in a Nolan before. He's done 27 Punishers. He's done The Bear. We've talked about him before. He's a gem. Himesh Patel, who is Odysseus's right-hand man, Euryclus, and he is in Tenet for a Christopher Nolan film. And he said, he was funny too, because he was like, I thought Tenet was hard. I was like, no. And they have all talked about how hard this film was. And if you watch the documentary, you're like, I get it. It's hard. But I love that he kind of brings back his troupe of players, as we've said before.
He's really good, that actor in this. To my point earlier, I do wish the other, men were better defined as we're seeing them killed, but like him as the right hand and his reactions to Odysseus' decisions and like defying the gods and all that, I think he is that is a great performance of wanting to be loyal, but how are you going to follow this guy to the end of the earth and you're all going to die because of it, which is what happens. But seeing his inner conflict on his face, like, it's a really great performance by this actor.
Yeah, he does an incredible job. And that is true. Like, it's the only character that pushes back on Odysseus at all, and he does it in the service of the rest of the men, but he also makes mistakes, but some of it is out of frustration with Odysseus and like, how are we going to get home? So yeah, I think he does a great job. And then obviously Elliot Page plays Sinon. He has been in Inception with Nolan before, so this is his first revisit to that. What I think is fun about this is Sinon is actually not originally in the Odyssey. It's in Virgil's Aeneid, not in the Odyssey. So he's incorporated from the Aeneid into this, which I think is a really fascinating choice, and it's an interesting story, but it adds this layer of complication and emotional connection to the traveling to and from Troy and the battle itself, that, to your point, we don't get because that's all Iliad. I like that they added that layer here to give us that connection to them. I think it works really well.
Yeah, when I saw Elliot Page was in this, I didn't know much going into this. I didn't even look up much of the casting, but I had seen people reacting to it, and then I was shocked.
They
in the
thought
first,
he was playing Achilles, and which was also a dumb assumption.
I didn't realize that was
he
what
dies
people
in the
expected.
Iliad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So in the first 5 minutes, you see Elliot Page killed, and I was thrown by that so it was just this little like cameo part, I guess.
Yeah.
But the way that, to your point, I do really love how they use that character throughout, of when they get to Hades and they have that interaction, and it's this weight that is just like pulling. And to all my points of talking about, I wish the soldiers were better defined, I think Sinon is a great example of that. And that's kind of encompassing of the guilt that he feels of leading his men to death. And then how it ties into the Robert Pattinson side of things as well, of the taking the place and whatnot. And like, it's just weighs on his conscience of, he literally knew this person was going to get murdered because of this. Like, there was a sacrifice he was willing to make, didn't warn him, and gets killed and just has to deal with it.
Yeah, it's such a good turn, and I think it's such a good thing to incorporate into the story and get us invested in that, and to connect to the guilt, like you're saying. I agree. We also have to talk about Benny Safdie, who plays Agamemnon to incredible effect without saying almost anything.
I personally,
it's just vibes.
I'm a Safdie brothers fan. I like their films for the most part, and I like a few of the performances that I've seen Benny do. In this, I think Agamemnon is, for the first 3/4 of this movie, is a really cool character because he's not saying anything. He's just this imposing figure. I love him marching into Troy with all his soul just like emotionless.
His
When he
walk, his
finally gets,
costume, the energy, it's
yeah, everything is
clutch.
great. The helmet, like
Yeah.
he's shrouded in secrecy or mystery. But when we finally hear his voice, I don't know that Benny Safdie was the move. I feel like he's the weakest actor in the film and he only has like 8 lines. But I
He is an
just not a
odd choice
huge,
in my opinion. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I think it works well because he is physically covered 90% of the time. Like I don't think he cuts an imposing figure as a person.
Yeah.
And so you need that extra headdress, you need the big, imposing armor to have the menacing nature of Agamemnon because he's the most powerful of all of these kings. He has led this effort into Troy. It's purely political. Everyone is afraid of him, including Odysseus. And so you're supposed to understand that about him. And I think the way that the costume designer has come in and created his armor does that very well. I don't think it totally is canceled out by his brief lines later, but I agree with you. I don't know that I understand him as the first choice.
It's a weird choice. I guess he put on a bunch of muscle. Like, good for him. He has like the one kind of nude
Also,
scene, and like, but I don't know. It just feels
I don't know. I Googled him
unnecessary.
afterward and I was like, he looks the same to me. Like, I mean, like, I literally was like,
He's just always
Benny
jacked.
Safdie Odyssey press tour, and no, he doesn't look very jacked to me.
Okay.
I'm not
I mean,
trying to
he's
be a dick
like,
about
I
it.
remember seeing him in was it Good Time with Robert Pattinson, where he had like the actual acting role. He's not a super imposing guy. Like,
That's what I mean.
he's yeah,
Kind of
oh.
passive.
Mm.
Interesting choice. I love his armor though. Fucking crush it. And even though it's anachronistic to the time, which people are very upset about, I think it's really interesting. I also think that the costume designer did go to much length to worry about and plan the aging of these materials. Like it's all natural dyes. There's no synthetic fabrics. There's aging and bronzing happening to the armor throughout shooting because you've been at sea for years, you've been on the beach for years, you've been in war. Like I think even though his armor is so intense and looks so different, on the whole, I think the costuming is incredible, and it's kind of an homage in Nolan's way to old Hollywood, which he calls out. He's like, I love especially old silent epics, because it's all about the in camera and making that as clean and tight as possible. And I think the costumes do that here too.
Yeah, they said, and I didn't really realize this until I sort of read that factoid you're mentioning, but like every time somebody makes a movie about, I joked about Troy earlier, but every time somebody makes a film about this age of like Greece and Rome and what, like, it's always this bright gold shining armor, like it hurts your eyes to fucking look at. And I liken this to your point, they put the aging on it. It looks real. It doesn't take you out of the movie,
Right.
like something like Troy did, I think.
Well, I mean, it's Bronze Age. Like it's supposed to be like darker and bronze and hardened and all these things. And so I think they do a really good job. And his armor is darkened in a way that, even though like the aesthetic of it is kind of intense and modern, it's darkened in a way that would be believable from what I understand. I want to call out a couple cameos, and then I swear to God, we're going to get rolling. But like, this is called the Odyssey, guys. Like, it's going to be a minute for us to talk about this one. I just want to be clear. But honorable mentions: Bill Irwin is the on-set performer who does Polyphemus, who, yes, is an animatronic puppet for part of it, but like he does the physicality of it in some of the shots. And then the Cyclops, son of Poseidon, rather. And then the Travis Scott moment, the Bard.
I had no idea that was him. I was so thrown when I
Yeah.
saw his name in the credits. Like,
I'm not like a huge fan, but I knew who he was, and I was like, okay, cool choice, interesting choice. And so I think those are a couple that they don't get a lot of time, but people we should kind of call out. So quick plot summary if you didn't fucking catch it. This is after the Trojan War, and Odysseus.
We're 46 minutes in, and we're getting
46
I feel like we have
in.
a bunch of my bullet points are scribbled out. We've been discussing the movie.
I think we've been doing great.
Yeah,
I have a lot more to say, but we've been doing great. But Odysseus faces a dangerous voyage back to Ithaca, meeting creatures like the Cyclops Polyphemus, Sirens, and Calypso along the way. See, there part of your trials answer was right there in the summary. You had no idea.
Just fucking Googled it. Oops.
Okay, so there are so many comments and so many things that I want to talk about, but really quickly, everybody's fucking seen this. There right now, this movie had, so this budget was $250 million budget. This was Christopher Nolan's most expensive film, tied with Oppenheimer, I believe is what it's tied with in terms of budget.
Surprised Oppenheimer was crazy expensive. It seemed like
Yeah.
I'm imagining all the visuals in Oppenheimer. Like it's just a bunch of guys working for the most
Maybe
of
it
the
was
movie.
Dark
Like
Knight. I'm I'm
I would
I'm
imagine it
I
would be
may
one of the Batman
I'm
movies.
maybe
Yeah,
mixing that up. But
maybe
it's tied for his most
Inception. I
expensive.
could see being expensive,
I
but
don't think it
yeah,
was Inception.
okay.
I've been reading so much Christopher Nolan stuff. I'm mixing it up, but it's probably Dark Knight. Probably Dark Knight. Or Dark Knight Rises even, because I remember they gave him more budget on that next one.
And they had to pay the fucking Pittsburgh Steelers to be in that one so they could destroy their stadium. Pittsburgh still hasn't recovered, I don't think. So
Were they okay before? No, just
I don't
kidding.
know. We're watching The Pit now. We haven't gotten to the end of season 3, so I'll let you know how it turns out.
How it turns out, how they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll check back on Pittsburgh later. Okay, but this budget, 250 million, point is, most expensive of his films, is currently sitting at 389 million, and we are not even through mid-August, where it is currently booked out to in terms of IMAX screenings. It is booked out into mid-August at the least. So yeah, it's doing fine. It's doing pretty well, I think.
Do you know off the top of your head where it stands in like this year's? I would imagine Project Hail Mary is probably the number one grosser of the year so far, but like
I
know
think that probably
Obsession's
has
up
it in
there,
gross, but in terms of openings, it's the biggest.
Okay.
And then for Christopher Nolan, it's his biggest opening weekend.
Okay.
I wonder how it's going to stack up in the long form, but yeah, he's breaking all kinds of records. It also, like I said, it's the first full length IMAX film, like 100% film with IMAX. The only other one is like The Wings and the Heart or something. It's like a 45-minute in the 90s. So it's just a groundbreaking piece of film, like literally. So I think that's, everybody's got to see it, like we said. Okay, so lots of fun factoids to share throughout, but want to talk about, like, we've talked a lot about the production design and some of that, but I also want to talk about just the Nolan part of this. Like, yes, the production design and the vision of all of that is him, but I like that he has not only incorporated this practical scale and these practical effects and these visual effects, but I love that we get some classic Nolan in terms of this non-linear timeline. Like, we get this, you're doing the very, that's such a hallmark of his, and he always does it so well, in my opinion. And I shouldn't say I didn't expect it. I just wasn't sure what he would do with this. Like, there is source material for this, how is he going to do that? Or is he going to just stick to the linear timeline? And I think he takes this and cuts it in the appropriate ways at the appropriate times, and the flashbacks helped. But I'm curious your perspective, not being like super familiar with the source material. Like, how was that non-linear experience?
Well, now that you're saying non-linear, my head goes to like Memento, and I'm like, Odysseus should have just tattooed himself. Remember Sammy Jenkins? And then he wouldn't have fucking forgotten about it on Calypso's Island. But no, I thought it worked for the most part. I do think for it being a 2 hour and 50-minute movie, I do compliment it for it. Keeps things moving for the most part. It's got some momentum to it. I do think there's a couple things that drag, and I think the Calypso stuff on a first watch drags a little bit, but only because you want answers, and we're going back there, and it's just him being like, I don't remember. Okay, well, let's have a flashback, and then you can remember. But I do think it all functions well together at the end of the day when you come around to the realization of why he's there and why he's trying to forget and eventually get back home. So I think it works as a structural device. I didn't mind that it was sort of like jumping back and forth. And like I said, it breaks up. Otherwise, I think it would be kind of silly to have a story where it's literally, well, then we went to this island and this bad thing happened, and then we sailed here, and then this bad thing happened, and then we sailed here, and this other weird thing happened. I feel like it would have gotten a little like silly if that was the structure, but I think jumping back and forth to him remembering makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does capture, so the source material does have in media res, which is it's in the middle of things, is what it means. So the poem does kind of insert you in the action at a certain point, but the way that he cuts back and forth is a little different than the source material. And so I was curious how it was going to work, but I I actually like the framing of the bard too, because it's so um similar to the invocation. And for those who don't know, and this was one of the things I wanted to nerd out about, is the invocation of the epic poem, and in many epic poems in Greek mythology, is where they are calling down the muse to, or whomever, a god, a muse, whomever, to inspire them to sing the song of this story and speak through them. And it's a very contemporary way in terms of this language to tell that story and to introduce this story. And I thought it was an interesting choice to have Travis Scott kind of frame it in an even more succinct way than the original translations, because I think they're all a little bit different. So I have read 5 Odyssey translations, and they are all very different. He uses Emily Wilson's, like I said, which is more contemporary. My favorite is this one, the Robert Fagles translation. This one is notably a bit more action oriented. Like Odysseus is kind of an action hero and it's very consumable. But I just think the first line tells us so much of this versus Emily Wilson's. Emily Wilson's first line is, "Tell me about a complicated man." That's the first line of the story, right?
Okay.
This translation, the Fagles one, is, "Sing to me of the man Muse, the man of twists and turns, driven time and again off course once he had plundered the hallowed heights of Troy." And this invocation goes on quite a bit longer, and I won't force everybody to listen to that. But that's a very different invocation. I think you can kind of immediately tell the difference in the story that we're trying to tell. Like, one is very heroic, and like, this is going to be a heroic action star, and this other one is going to be this more complicated character driven story. And I think it's very interesting that I feel like Nolan took that character and that character driven story and put it up against the action of like this kind of telling of Homer. And I think it's super interesting. I think it's an interesting combo.
Works. Yeah, it all works. I can't speak to the different, iterations of the story, but I think this might be the first, outside of like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I think this is the first, theatrical telling of the Odyssey that I've watched. Maybe I watched a really old one in like high school or middle school, but in like English class. But it's the best.
I think that's such a good call out though, because the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is such an awesome adaptation, as we've said before.
Covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think like if you are interested in this story, the fundamentals remain the same, but there's so many formats of it. Like Stephen Fry does a retelling a la the epic poem, and it's not word for word a translation, So there's all kinds of different approaches to this. And I think like you see Christopher Nolan just kind of, creating an amalgamation of all of these different approaches, but rooted in this contemporary, like character driven story. So I think that's where I want to spend some time, is on the characters themselves. Obviously, Odysseus is our lead and who we spend the most time with. But I think you get snippets of his flaws here, again, of his hubris, but you don't get quite as much. I mean, in the books, he's even more cunning, and he's actually referenced many times as a liar and a manipulator, and he more of a trickster almost in some ways, and then very very arrogant in terms of his hubris, and that's what gets him into trouble with the Cyclops. It's what gets him into trouble multiple times in the story. And I'm curious, like, what was your takeaway in terms of watching this character on in this version alone? Like, do you feel like he's a hero? Do you feel like he's deeply flawed? Do you feel like what's your takeaway?
I think it's one, again, I need to rewatch this at some point, because by the end I understood the character. At the beginning I didn't, and even halfway through you're trying to piece it together. To your point, it's very typical Nolan of like trying to string together what exactly has happened. Like, we know all his men died, but like, why is he on this island? And I think that when you find out at the end of he is, their whole culture is around this Zeus's law and, being good to your neighbors and treating others how you'd want to be treated and things like that, or as if they could be gods, like treat others as if they could be a god in disguise. And it makes perfect fucking sense that he would carry guilt of, oh, we broke Zeus's law, by pretending to give this gift, and that's what won us the war. And I saw a bunch of innocents slaughtered because of this very devious thing that I did. But now I'm being hypocritical because there's a bunch of people exploiting this law, at my plan. I'm hearing like, I think after watching it, when you know all of that going into it, it makes a ton more sense. But at the beginning, you're just like, wait, why is he saying that they're not just going to go the same way home that Agamemnon is going? And he says the funniest line of the movie.
The funniest line.
A couple stops won't kill us. Oh, well, it kind of fucking does.
Except literally everyone but you.
So I think that I'm a little lost on first watch at the beginning, but I think at the end you understand why the character, he gives that whole monologue to Penelope at the end of why it took him so long to get home. And it's this guilt he's carrying, and he still isn't sure that he can come back from that. So I think it makes a lot more sense at the end of the movie, but a first watch, I was a little thrown of just like, why do I care about this guy outside of the fact that he was really smart,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think
he seems like he's being a fucking idiot in the first hour of a movie. Like he's just a dumbass that's
which is so interesting. And that's why I wanted to ask, because it's like he is the antithesis of an idiot, right? Like as a character, like he is the most brilliant strategist at Troy. He wins them the war, but he's also a brilliant strategist in general in terms of political intrigue. Like there's so much outside the gates of Troy that is happening in the Iliad that he is a vehicle behind, so like it's so interesting to see that perspective of, if you don't know that, how do you glean that this is a brilliant person and this is somebody that something else is happening here, like you're saying, like something there's another factor here. So I think that's fascinating. What I saw was, even knowing all the source material, was this version is a much more heroic version, a much more sympathetic version, right? Like of course you see him carrying guilt and things like that, but you don't get, again, his relationships with Circe and Calypso that could potentially degrade his loyalty to Penelope. You don't see any of that. And you mostly see him trying to get his men home, even on Helios's island, where, he's trying to keep them from starving, but also eating these cattle that are going to be, the end of them. And he tries to save them with Circe. He certainly knows they're under threat. So like, there's so many opportunities for him to be heroic here that I think, I was curious if people are just like rooting for him from the get-go. Even despite all that kind of complication that's there.
I think you do root for him for the most part. I like the lines of dialogue where he talks about, just I defy the gods. Like, I'm going to get my men home safe no matter what. But then it's kind of contradictory because he's the one that's getting them killed by making all these boneheaded decisions of just, we're going to sail here and we'll see what happens. We'll run into land eventually. You use the word hubris, and I think that's a good word for it. I do think there's some stuff that's left a bit unexplored of, we know at the end that he's conflicted of, he did this horrible thing and he saw a bunch of like slaughter and things that made him feel, but I feel like they don't represent that through the movie of him ever being super conflicted about how he feels about his soldiers, despite the fact that he knows they're terrible people. And Circe tells him, I didn't turn them into pigs, they were already pigs. And I think there's something more to explore there of, does he really want to protect these guys that just, raped and pillaged and did all these terrible fucking things, under his command, but he was just trying to win a fucking war for his, his king or whatever. So I think there's a little left on the bone there, but I also wouldn't want to sit through a 4-hour movie. So who knows? Yeah,
I think to continue the analogy, I think there's so much meat to this story that this is an Odyssey. It is the Odyssey. It is an epic film, but it is an even more epic poem. And so there is so much more to explore there. And he does love his men, but he does believe that his men are the product of 20 years away from home, and 10 years on a battlefield, and just trying to win a battle that was for none of them, was for the politics of all of this. And he feels in the story, at least to some degree, that he is a part of that. He made them into this, right? Like him and Agamemnon and Menelaus made them all go there and turn into, kind of the animals that they became to wage this war. And so I do think he feels, mixed feelings about that. I think the interesting kind of undertone of this whole story is the men from the sea who are coming to and are breaking Zeus's law and spreading the breaking of Zeus's law, almost like a plague, is this undercurrent tone here. And Penelope and Telemachus are afraid of this coming, and it's him. It's him and
That
his men.
I was thrown by that. I feel like that could have been executed a little better because we really only see them go to one island that's just humans and they
Mm-hmm.
they fuck it up and they burn the people burn their things because they're so scared of them and all that, and they sort of like steal all their food and whatnot. We only really see that happen once. The rest of it is them going to islands, running into fucking monsters or creatures of some kind and getting their
Mm-hmm.
asses kicked. I feel like there was more of an opportunity for them to spell out through the movie of, yeah, they're going to these places, like in between all these horrible things that are happening, they're the bad guys. Because I think we only really see it the once. So when she says,
Right.
"You're the people from the sea," that didn't land for me because we only saw it one time. I don't know.
Kind of. I mean, it's the key one is Troy, right? It's so brutal and damaging that sends shockwaves. Like that is the same scenario, and they did that, right? And so I think they are the people from the sea in that way. They went there, they waged a war, they broke Zeus's law, they begin this domino effect with the most epic battle of all time, and it permeates the membrane of this entire story. So I think it's there, but I also think the potential was there at Cersei's as well, and she preempts it, and I think that's her implication, right? Of like they want everything that I have. They want my food, they want my like, and in this story, they stay there for a year, and they, kind of eat her out of house and home. And so she's there is some more of that in the story, certainly, but I do think they do a good job of showing the undercurrent of potential violence, and the potential for them to be these men that they were at Troy, again, if the circumstances are right. And I think you see them also compromise themselves at Helios's island, which is, you completely understand, arguably. I'm not saying that you're starving. Like, what are you going to do? But you see them kind of devolve into some of their baser
It was
instincts there.
hilarious on that island though, where they were like, "You're not allowed to eat these cattle," but the cows are just walking around, and the guys are like shooing them away, and the cows are like, "You will never get this. You will never get this."
They're just
Just
taunting
rubbing
them.
it in their fucking faces.
100%, 100%. But I think like there's two fronts here in this story that I think we have to compare and talk about. Like there is this wandering story of Odysseus, but there is also the home front, literally at Ithaca, where Telemachus and Penelope are holding off these suitors who are deeply abusing Zeus's law, and also intimidating them into, like, they are stuck, right? They're stuck there kind of dealing with them. And Telemachus finally breaks down and leaves and goes to see Menelaus, and we see that whole sequence. But it's all in an effort to protect Ithaca, and to understand, of course, whether or not his dad is coming home. And I absolutely adore the fucking scene between Penelope and Telemachus, where he is talking about how he has to find a way to retake the throne. He's talking about that empty throne. And Penelope gives this fucking speech that is short but brutal in its accuracy and its delivery, where she's like, "Empty throne? I've been sitting on that empty throne. Who do you think's been running this kingdom with your father gone this whole time? Like, do you think this just happens, you fucking child?" And I say that liking Telemachus, but he needs a re-education in that moment of, I have been holding it down, kid. Like, I am running this show. And it is, to me, one of the best examples of a woman having power in a Nolan film. Because I've talked about this before. If I think he has kind of a bro club, unintentionally, however it may be. I think there's a little bit of a bro club, and a lot of the women don't get their due. And I love that Penelope is reframed here a little bit. And yes, absolutely being hostage to her role in the situation. She only has so much power, while also saying and showing that she is subtly using that power. Everything from staying behind the shroud and weaving the loom and unweaving it at night so that she can hold these people off, and playing the game. Like, she is Odysseus's equal in so many ways, and I think you get to actually see that here.
Yeah, I think there's a risk in any film that's portraying this media that of making that a one-dimensional character. Oh, she's just the
Hmm.
wife and she's, holding out hope that her love will come home and that's it. So she's just
Mm-hmm.
not going to marry these men because she thinks her husband's alive. Like, that is a risk. And I agree with you that Nolan doesn't do that. And he really gives her so much to work with here. I don't know how much of it's in the source material, but she's a great character, very compelling. On the flip side, I feel like for a 2 hour and 50-minute movie that does keep moving and it gets broken up with this, other story that's happening in, I guess, present day, some of the Telemachus stuff drags for me. Like,
The
we
Menelaus
linger
visit.
there a little too long. Of
Mm-hmm.
he's just okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna go search for his dad. He goes and I do like that it tells you the story of what we didn't see, like what occurred beforehand. But
Mm-hmm.
Menelaus is telling you what actually happened at Troy, and then what happened when they got home. And you find, I like what's unveiled through that story. But the Telemachus stuff, if I'm just gonna like go have conversations to try and find my dad, is not super compelling until it turns out, oh, there's a murder plot to get him. That's when it becomes more interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, I really like that connection with Menelaus, that he's the one to tell him the real story, right? Because you
Yeah.
even see Penelope at the beginning, like, say, like, stop, don't sing the song of Odysseus. She doesn't want to hear it for all the reasons. And it is also just, it is this epic retelling of his heroism rather than what actually happened and why isn't he home and all these unanswered questions. And I like that the Menelaus retelling is giving us like the gritty truth of this story and not the romanticized heroic tale. And I think that's such a good moment, but I do agree that you could shorten that. I do also like the moments that Helen gets here, Lupita gets here, because I do think it's not enough of Lupita, to be fair, but I do think she gets to bring through the hatred that Helen has for the situation that she's in. And again, you don't usually in this story get that dimensionality to that woman's
She's
character.
just a pretty
And
face. Yeah.
she's just a pretty face that launched 1,000 ships. And I love that she's like, I didn't launch 1,000 ships, fucking Agamemnon did.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was an excuse, a political
To go to war.
excuse to
Yeah.
go to Troy. Right. And I love that you get that reframing of it's not her. She's not fucking responsible. Right. It's the men in the situation who are responsible. And she is now suffering back with the husband. She was choosing to escape. She chose to escape and has now been brutalized for it. And it ties in a little bit to like how the gods are all factors here. And I think it's an interesting choice that Christopher Nolan makes to make the gods less mythical in this version. Like there is this light magic and myth to them, but they are not as involved in the moving of the chess pieces
I
as
was
they are in the
expecting
story.
more actual physical manifestation because they talk about it
Mm-hmm.
so much of, oh, we just pissed off Poseidon and we pissed off Zeus and we like
Well,
all
it
this
is, but it's
like
different. It's the wind,
yeah, it's
it's
just,
the
oh, the sea is ravaging us and that's Poseidon. Like I
right.
thought there would be eventually like a physical manifestation of the gods in this. Not that I'm not disappointed it didn't happen, but I just kept expecting
Expecting
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
I
kind of
kind of
like that they didn't. They just kept it sort of metaphorical of we're getting our asses kicked because you keep
right.
saying I'm defying the gods.
Right. And like Helios, we don't see him lose his ship, but he definitely kills them. We
Yeah.
see Poseidon and the wind and the storms and the seas, and you see that happen, and you see Circe's power, but they're all subtle movements versus in the original story, Athena is the one who gifts Helen to Paris, and causes this war. And she also disguises Odysseus when he goes back, right? She actually makes him look like an old beggar where he cannot be
Hmm.
recognized, which is what makes the Argos moment actually so much more powerful because he still recognizes him despite the goddess infused disguise. But I like that it has become more tangible and grittier and a bit more rooted in the practicality and the humanity of it. And you see that show up in Helen's performance here, in Clytemnestra's killing of Agamemnon later. And it brings you back kind of to earth, grounds it in this very human story, I think is interesting.
Yeah, I like that you like again. I like that you get those elements of the various backstories, the flashbacks of Agamemnon sacrificing their child, and then Helen killing him. Like I like that they tell more of the story through these conversations that Telemachus is sitting in on or having. But yeah, there's just parts of that kind of drag. And for the record, I would recognize Matt Damon if he was dressed like a beggar. I'd be like, that's fucking Matt Damon. Like I would know. Just saying. Not that good.
You would know.
Yeah.
You and Argos. That's it. The most loyal dog, by the way, in both cinematic and literary history, stays around for 20 years to see his master again, and he recognizes him, and then he dies. And
I
it's
would
such a
argue
sad-
that Seymour in Futurama, Jurassic Park, one of the saddest episodes of all
Oh my
time, more loyal. And I'm happy. Okay, spoilers for Futurama. I'm happy that they retconned it though. Like when they made the Futurama movies after the show got canceled temporarily, they had it retconned where then Fry went back and like got his dog and took care of him for the rest of his life. So, but that episode when it first aired was heartbreaking. So that was what I felt watching this. I'm just this poor fucking dog waiting for his owner to come home.
I personally was wrecked by Argos, of course, getting kicked by fucking Antinuous piece of shit.
Yeah.
If he didn't need to die, if he wasn't going to die already, like he should have died just for that. Like absolutely killed this fucking guy. And then, and then Odysseus gets home and he sees him and he pets him and then he dies. And I'm like, but they're together again. Like you want.
Yeah,
anyway.
but he's like, oh, you can go now. You've been a good boy. Like,
I know.
It's very touching. But yeah,
It's
go watch
very
Jurassic
touching.
Park, cry a little. And speaking of which, I think that the payoff as we're getting to the end of like when we get that last 20 or 30 minutes of the film where he finally he's off the island with Calypso, he takes his leap of faith and just sort of floats out into the ocean, he's making his way home. I like a couple of things there. I really enjoy how he takes Agamemnon's advice that he hears in Hades of don't just march in and say it's me, I'm home, like play it cool, go around, listen to what people are saying about you because you might be walking into your death like I did. So I like that he is very methodical and he doesn't tell anyone straight up that it's him, even his own son. Like Telemachus gets there, he understands it. But I like that methodical way that he's going about it of I'm going to go and I'm going to pay attention. He goes and has the conversation with Antinous and like just realizes like, okay, this asshole who basically like faked an injury to get out of he Donald Trumped his way out of the fucking war, like he's now trying to fuck my wife and he's being an asshole. He's treating my son like shit. And I like that he just goes about it this way.
He kicked my dog.
He doesn't even tell his wife that it's him. He's just, he's trying to make amends until he doesn't really have a choice. And then because of her decision of this is the way we're going to find my next suitor, like I just love that delivery. Thanks to your mom, now I have a weapon. Like I'll be armed. Don't you fucking worry your little head because I'm the only one that can string this bow. It's a great payoff.
It is. And I think like there's even more to it in the story that how she tests him. Like she tests him here with the pin, the Athena pin. In the story, she's testing him with the olive tree, immovable olive tree bed that he made for them. And so their partnership just snaps right back into place. You know what I mean? Like I love that they immediately start to complement each other. And I think there's this like underlying awareness from Odysseus that there's this confidence of I can do this. And I think that's partially because of what we saw happen in Hades, right? In the underworld, Tiresias is telling him everything that'll happen, right? Like this is the way this is gonna go, So I think there is some confidence that's built in there because of that almost placebo effect he's been given by this conversation with them. But I didn't want to forget to mention that the Tiresias scene is one of my absolute favorites in this movie.
Which one is Tiresias?
Is in the underworld under the sand. He's the one who's telling him he's telling him the way this is what's gonna happen to his men, how they're gonna die, where he's gonna go, all of that. But what's really interesting about how that is shot is those are real men under the sand. This is shot in Iceland, and these are real stunt performers under the sand with oxygen tanks. And they had to layer them in sand, give them an oxygen tank, and start a timer and get the shot and do it within a few minutes. They had limited minutes every time before these people would run out of oxygen. And if you put too much sand on them, they can't get up, right? So I just think it's so fascinating the way that scene was shot and the effect that it gives. And I think it's such an excellent choice to be put up against the very different scenes that we've seen to date, these islands, these beaches, the battlefields, all of that. This is such a cold, dark, distant, rocky, remote place that feels like the underworld. And then you have this eerie way that it is shot, and this effect of them coming out of the sand and coming through the mist and all that. I fucking love that scene. I think
Yeah,
it's
that whole
stunning.
sequence is great. Them coming up, and it's just seeing the sheer number, like the men that are
Yeah,
alive are just outnumbered. It's like, what the fuck is going to happen? Are we going to have to fight these things? You don't really
because
know
that's
what's
how many
happening.
died. It's a physical representation of his guilt, right? Like that's how many people's deaths that he, Agamemnon and Menelaus, are responsible for, right?
Yeah.
And you feel the weight of that physically chasing you off the island. It's just it's stunning, I think,
If I
actually.
had to give any like critique here to Nolan, I would say missed opportunity for a needle drop of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and like having a little dance number in the middle of this, I think could
The
have
way I
lightened the mood
almost
a little
choked
bit.
on my coffee.
but but no, the Hades stuff is great. I love the like drinking the blood and like the different messages,
Yeah.
and again bringing the Sinon of it all, like that whole conversation
Yeah.
of you're gonna carry this
And
guilt.
that
Like I
packs
went,
a
you lied to
punch.
me and said I was gonna be. You knew I was gonna die because
You
of this,
fucking
and
owe me.
yeah,
You fucking owe me. Go kill this motherfucker. And I think
yeah,
it's such a tie-in to my other favorite scene, which, like, who else obviously it's the other best scene, where Odysseus fucking locks in. You know what I mean? Like you just see it happen. There's this moment where like he is walking out of the cottage where he is seeing Eumaeus, John Leguizamo's character, who has obviously been beaten and all these things. He's really struggling, and this is his only trusted servant left. He's going to be the only one who knows what's happening here, really. And he's just like, I'm bringing it all, and he goes in there locked in. But like you said, strategic. He's not raging in the door, but he's like, I am going to go in there and take my home back, and they are going to suffer for everything that they have done. And I just love that his son is really put through his first test in this moment as well. And you see them, really the two of them are pit against all of these suitors. And it's such a fucking scene. It is so cinematic. It is so beautiful. It is well shot. The music is perfect. The bow snap is perfect. I love that moment where Penelope is walking away, because who doesn't? She's walking away and she's like, I'm gonna get out of here. I don't, it's not working. Nobody hears it. And he snaps the bow and you're like, it's on. It's fucking
yeah.
on.
And she just closes. She's like, okay, he's home. I'm gonna let him kill all
She's
these
like,
people now. Like
right.
he's gonna
We're
clear
good
the house.
here. We're good
Yeah,
here.
I think a couple things with that. Like I do think I don't love the 80s movie ninja logic during that scene of everybody's attacking him one at a time. I get why they're afraid. It's Odysseus. He's got a reputation. He'll probably murder
Right.
you. But I think that fight sequence goes on a little long for what's happening. I do like that he's getting like taking damage throughout. But I don't love the ninja logic. It threw me a little bit. But yeah, I do think it has like a great payoff of he's like, I don't have to kill everybody here. I just have to kill you. That's a great line. Like, you're the only one that I'm really concerned about here. And that first arrow through the neck of the guy who kicked the dog, like, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
You're just like, somebody on Letterboxd, I can't take credit for this, but one of the top Letterboxd reviews was like, I love how Odysseus turns into John Wick after his dog dies.
After his dog died. Yeah, I saw that too. And it's like, hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because it's, it's time to shut these fuckers down, and he does it so well. But I also think what I like about that scene, I get what you're saying as far as the ninja logic, but I do think like it's he knows that environment probably better than anybody, and he kind of knows the weaknesses, and he is an incredible warrior, and you see that put to the test, because these folks did not go to war, if that was not clear, right? So these people are not battle hardened battle strategists, right? These are people that are maybe strong physically, but not battle tested, and he is. And I think that's the energy that comes through there that I think really works. And I like that it puts, again, Telemachus to his own test of like, you need to show the fuck up and support, of course you want to support your father, but you need to battle with and for your father at this point, and for your throne potentially. And I love that coming through. I also like that they make us wait for the Antinous payoff of the death. It's so satisfying, actually, to see him to be continually a piece of shit that whole battle, and like prove exactly who he is the whole time.
Cowardice. Yeah.
And then die in the way that he dies. Because in the book, he dies first. And so I'm not to say that wouldn't also be satisfying, but I just feel like this is better, right? You're like, you see him building up to this moment.
Somebody, again, I don't think I've read the Odyssey since like 9th or 10th grade. So I didn't remember a lot of what happened in this, but I I feel like they could have started doing this earlier, but I do like how through that fight, eventually people just start kneeling of like, please don't kill me. You're the king.
Yeah,
I know you're Odysseus.
I love it.
I like that that is what happens. And then it's like, he just has to kill this one last asshole to really be done with it. And everyone agrees like he's the king. Take a
Yeah.
fucking knee. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think these people were in a lot of ways loyal to him. They weren't all as corrupt and terrible as Antinous is, but they've been under his influence this whole time, and like they haven't had this leader that they are used to and this strong king
Right.
for years. And I think, some of them, as they're realizing really truly who it is, they're like, oh yeah, this is why we follow this fucking guy.
Yeah. I also
This is
like,
the one.
yeah, like he's our king. Cool. Take a knee. Again, because I didn't remember the story, I'm glad that this didn't end. I feel like if you're watching this for the first time or you're seeing the source material for the first time, you would assume at the end, okay, he's been wounded a bunch. He's going to finally get home. He's going to die from these wounds. His son's going to take over, but everyone knows Odysseus came home. I like that she's like, don't die now. You can't. And he's like, no, I'm not dying. We're going to go to exile. Let's go on a cruise.
Yeah.
Our son can be, and I like that ending because I think every movie trope will tell you, oh, he's got to die now. Like he saved his wife and son and now that, but yeah. I like that it ends with them just being like, no, we're fine. He survives. Yeah. This is great.
But I like that it's gritty and that he has really taken hits to do it. Right. Like he is not so heroic that he is impenetrable. He has been hurt in this process.
He's been penetrated like 3 times in that whole yeah, he's got like a spear hanging out of him and like arrows and
yeah, it hasn't been great for him, but he's crushed it ultimately. And again, I just think it speaks to like the physical hero that he is, the battle hardened guy that he is, but that he can survive it because look at everything that he has survived. And he's not, I like that this story reframes it as he's not fighting for his home in the physical sense, in the sense of Ithaca. He's fighting for his home in Penelope. And I actually think that's one of the things that makes it a little bit, again, like he's crossing genres here. It's a little bit of a love story in this moment of like, you are what I have been trying to get to. And I don't really care about this kingdom. I mean, I do care about it, but I want my son to take it and lead it. And I want you and I to go into the unknown West and like sail together and be together. I think that's a beautiful retelling. That is not how it ends, right? He comes back and he goes back to being king. So I like that they have changed that a bit of, you can't come home in the real way. You can't come home from that sort of trauma that he has come back from and just go back to the way things were. I think that feels more human to me.
Yeah, I love that change. So are you saying on the record that the more interesting version of the Odyssey and Odysseus motivations is just a man who doesn't want to be cuckolded? Like, nobody's gonna fuck my wife.
I was waiting for it to drop. I was like, where are we going with this? What's happening? Yeah, sure. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely. With my 5 red translations of this story and this film, that's what I got down to. Absolutely. Nice. But I do love their moment. I love that Telemachus gets his moment. I like that, we end on this more human note. Again, like this is a myth. This is a mythology. It's a beautiful, incredible story. But I think this is a very human retelling of it, actually, despite being as epic as it is. So
yeah, dude, it was very, very good.
Okay, I could literally go on forever. There's I have 7 pages of notes about production design and all these things, and I'll spare all of you. But
you got your new we'll plug your other Instagram handle now, the Wayne Cut.
Oh yeah, it's the Wayne Cut.
So I felt release like another 60 minutes of footage on there.
Say,
I'll put
some stuff on there for folks if they want to nerd out with me. I felt like I was annoying my friends with how much I was posting about movie shit. So I just made a movie one is what it came down to. So it's if you want to hear me nerd out further, you can absolutely go there. But before we call it quits, I obviously need to know your rating.
Yep.
And your golden garnish, which I think in this is going to be fucking hard personally, but I don't know. You tell me.
This one is tough. Really, really tough. I think I'm going to give, for the first time, the golden garnish to, what did you say the name of the visual effects supervisor was?
Andrew Jackson. Remember, he's on the money.
So I'm gonna give it to Andrew Jackson. He was president, and now he's the winner of the Golden Garnish. Like, just because
He's just
as a
crushing.
horror fan, I was not expecting so much horror in this, between like
Hmm.
the Cyclops stuff and the
That Cyclops
animal,
is
like
fucking cool, man.
the morphing of the animal and the Hades pieces. There's just so much in this, but I'm a huge fan of practical effects, going all the way back
Yeah.
to like we covered The Thing by John Carpenter, and just the fact that none of that, like, it was way before CGI, and it just looks incredible still to this day. So I appreciate that throughout this you're telling this incredible story that would have been very easy to,
Hmm.
in 2026, to just throw on a green screen and like try and make your money back. So I respect to Nolan for being the one who's like, I want to do this all practical, but I'm just gonna, give some love to the visual effects artist here. I think
Yeah,
everything looks incredible.
I think that's true. I I have a tie because like I just can't. Again, I just watched this documentary. Like, bear with me. There's too many choices, but I have a tie between Hoyte van Hoytema, who is the cinematographer, and the production designer, Ruth de Jong. I think they had everybody had an incredibly difficult task here, but I think they had two of the hardest jobs on this film. And seeing how they innovated in the face of that and built this world, and then shot this world is epic. It's epic. And, and he invented, we didn't even get to, he innovated lights, like light panels that are fire, that are not fire. He, shot in these crazy places. And so like there's just so many layers to this that I think they did the best work of their careers and gave us this epic film that is going to be studied and experienced for years. I think it's a pivotal moment in filmmaking. So
Yeah.
I want to give it
I
to
think
them.
this will be the version of the Odyssey that high schoolers are watching when it's like, okay, we read the
Right.
book, now we have to watch the movie. It's always going to be this one for the next 50 years.
I mean, and if you like, we talk about like a Lawrence of Arabia moment, right? Like that is a classic
Mhm.
epic that we reference and that people watch and study. This is that for this era, right? And I just think it's brilliant. So,
Okay.
all that to say, Golden Garnishes all around, really, but those
Yeah,
would be
great
my
film.
picks. But what's your rating?
Well, let me. Okay, worst fact. Before we get there, worst fact.
Is there a worst fact? Like I don't,
It's. I just didn't think this was that interesting because there was so
Okay.
little. Like, it's an interesting thing to think about, but there's so little detail behind it. It literally just said Lady Gaga was considered for a role in this film. That was all it said.
Oh
And
my
then my
God.
head just spiraled into, well, was she going to play Agamemnon, or like, so I just wanted to mention that because it gave
I
me
feel like
a
she maybe could
reaction.
have done a more menacing voice for Agamemnon. Who
Honestly,
knows?
yeah, better than the Safdie boy. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm not going to go too much into details. I feel like we've discussed this at length. I had a really good time watching this on a personal level. Like I said, I'm not a huge fantasy guy. I think there are a couple parts that drag. There are sequences, like I think the Circe piece goes on a little long. The conversation goes on a little long. The scene that you talked about with the 7 foot tall knights on the island, I feel like that could have been stronger. The moving woods thing was so well done, but when you're watching, you
That's
don't
so
really
cool.
realize it's happening. I feel like there's a creepier way you could have made that work. I'm nitpicking, but all
Yep.
that to say, like, fantasy's not my thing, and I still had a really good time. So on a personal level, this is like an 8.5 for me. Like on a cinematic level, it's probably a 9, but I'll go 8.5 on a personal level.
Yeah, I just don't think about this as fantasy, but I can see you getting there. I mean, it's mythology, but I feel like it's a very human version of mythology, to be honest. It's very just like action drama. It is, I think it's genre bending. I like that about it.
Yeah,
I think it is genre bending. I don't have no notes, but I have next to no notes. So I feel like it's, 10 out of 10. I mean,
finally.
I
Okay.
love this movie. And the filmmaking, the again, the deep dive of the filmmaking for me does a lot of that, of like it's insane how this movie was made, and I think it's incredible. But I also love the nerd factor for me. Like I got so many layers out of it of, I had a Greek mythology concentration in college, and so this is like peak for me. And so I got to just like nerd out. It's not a perfect adaptation, but it is, I think, a very interesting adaptation that pulls together a lot of different pieces from different interpretations of this thousands-year-old story, 3,000 years old. And I just think that is so brilliant that we are talking about something that is that old. Like, I just think that's fucking cool. So anyway, 10 out of 10.
Okay. We have to go back into our history and see how many 10s you've given. I feel like it's fewer than 5 films.
Oh yeah, I think Project Hail Mary was one, and I was trying to talk myself out of it. I was like,
Yeah.
this feels silly, like but it feels like a perfect movie. Those are the only 2 I can think of, but there may be 1 or 2 others. I don't know.
What was Dawn of the Dead? 2004?
Oh,
Is that
fucking Christ. What did I give that? Probably a 0 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't that bad. Oh, okay, kids. Well, thanks for joining. This one was obviously super fucking fun for me. And I think for us, we talked about it for, half the length of the movie. Come back next week for our new month, new theme, my birthday gift to Lamar. He is picking every single movie for the month of August. Holy shit. I don't even know what they all are yet. I just know the first one.
We could have just done Dawn of the Dead 4 times, and I would have had a great birthday month, but I won't make you do that. But yeah, I'm very excited. I appreciate it. It's the first time we've done this, and I was telling you, we were talking last night, and I said, I don't own a ton of physical media. I think I'm going to start going back to physical media because I'm getting a little sick of this digital bullshit. But you have a shelf of hundreds of titles. My Blu-ray and DVD shelf is maybe 30 to 40 movies where, like, if my internet was out and I want to watch this, I want to watch it right now. Or if somebody comes over and I'm like, you've never seen this, we have to watch it right now. I don't want to pay to rent it. So I have very select titles there. And I was pleasantly surprised by how many of those we've already discussed on the podcast. Like, compliments to you for being willing to watch some of the shit that I like, and also stuff we agree on. Sure. Like I was like, oh, we did Goon. That's so cool that Mackenzie was willing to do Goon. So there's a lot that we've already done. But I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm a nice person, actually. Who knew? Yeah. I'm excited to see what else we cover. We are starting with Snatch, which is a Guy Ritchie film, if y'all don't know, and I highly recommend you watch it if you want to listen to that episode. But the rest are TBD, so come along for the ride. We're going to find out what Lamar picks. It'll be interesting. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things, mainly on Instagram. Been throwing little like conversation starters into our reels and whatnot.
We are also putting on there the recipes now. As promised, I would just like to pat myself on the back. Like, I am consistently sharing these recipes with you guys every single week. So definitely go check those out too, because that there's like photo shoots involved. It's all for you. Try our cocktails.
And they're beautiful. I do not put all the effort that Mackenzie does into the accoutrement of the drink. I just want to drink the drink. But the first couple you've posted are gorgeous, gorgeous beverages. And shout out, like I said, if you post on our Instagram, we will probably mention you on the show. So shout out to the Labrie, who really enjoyed my disclosure day summary of all the things that were wrong with that movie.
Just the spoiler.
It's basically ruining the whole movie, but honestly, guys, we gave it really poor ratings, so you might not even need to go see it, but yeah.
Well, I like that he was like, did you cut to black? And I was like, God, we should have done that. Like, it would have been great to just end the episode right there. Fuck this shit. It was so bad. Anyway, love that. Thanks for commenting. All right, kids. For now, though, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.